Does our community really need DEI, AA, and CRT to succeed?
Over the past several weeks, a series of companies have announced moves to scale back on DEI efforts. That's short for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Now, Ford Motor Company is the latest. In a memo to employees, Ford said it will no longer participate in an annual survey for an LGBTQ+ advocacy group. It will also not use quotas for minority dealerships and suppliers.
Lowe's is the latest company to roll back DEI efforts.
Welcome back. A big shock from a big retailer, Tractor Supply, which actually is huge. Got more than 2,200 stores all across America. Last night, coming out and saying they're cutting all of their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. That includes jobs as well, focused on DEI. Tractor Supply adds it will no longer submit employment data to the Human Rights Campaign and focus more on land and water conservation than lowering emissions. Tractor Supply says they're doing this in response to customer.
Yes, workplaces need better diversity, and yes, schools need to teach true Aboriginal Black American history instead of the propaganda they teach now. However, over 75% of major corporations are headed by conservative Republican men, so there's no question diversity remains a challenge. However, is DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and CRT, critical race theory, the answer? It depends on who created these strategies in the first place, who finances them, who truly benefits, and what is their ulterior motive for us. This is the Trojan horse strategy, by the way. Here's how McKinsey & Company defines DEI. Quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion are three closely linked values held by many organizations that are working to be supportive of different groups of individuals, including people of different races, ethnicities, religions, abilities, genders, and orientations. You know what that means. Unquote. Notice DEI buries us in the word racist in a sea of all kinds of groups, which is why our identity gets lost and our unique voices get drowned out. This is why today anyone can identify as one of us, like that corrupt city councilwoman in Jackson, Mississippi did before she had to step down in a bribery scandal recently. Though she is Filipina and Mexican and a member of the AKA sorority, sound familiar? She boldly identified as African American, and our emotional, blinded brothers and sisters in Jackson voted her in office, accepting her as one of us. This is not an accident, but it's part of the deadly payload of this massive Trojan horse we have allowed into our community since the 1960s. DEI, CRT, AA, that's affirmative action, and similar kinds of initiatives never benefit us because they are a Trojan horse meant to benefit whatever non-Black group is favored at the moment, including white women. They just use us, especially sisters, as the face and mouthpiece of their movement.
I'm LaTanya Flick, Senior Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Partnership. What is diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI, this three-letter amorphous acronym that you've heard everywhere? So let's start with the D for diversity. We think of diversity as composition across many facets of identity, and that could be race, gender, age, LGBTQIA status, veteran status, class, so many factors of identity, but it's about composition. The E is for equity, and we think of equity as the condition that exists when identity no longer determines outcome. So those factors of identity that I just talked about no longer are a predictor of what happens to someone. And then I, it's for inclusion, and inclusion is about experience. Do you have a sense of belonging? Can you be authentic? Can you bring your full self to work? So diversity, composition, equity, outcome, inclusion, experience. That's DEI.
I just think this is so funny. I saw this lady freaking out on Twitter. She was like, oh, we know what the right means. We know what the moderates mean when they say you're a DEI hire. What do you mean? It means exactly what y'all said it means. Y'all made up the term. It means that you got hired because you're black, or you're fat, or you're disabled, or you're gay, or you're a female. That's it. Y'all want it to be more inclusive, but then you discriminated against a whole group of people. And now that we're calling it out, it's an issue. You guys made up the term. You guys were open and proud about that. It's not about merit anymore. Who got the best boohoo story? Who's the most oppressed? Suppression Olympics. It was never about inclusivity. Just say you're racist and you hate white men. And everybody else got to get stuff because it's not as easy and they're not good enough. They don't know how to do anything right, so we should just hand it to them. That's literally what y'all said. And now y'all mad that we're like kind of regurgitating your nonsense.
Let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So why is diversity important? Well, because you and your culture and your community are not the only ones that exist in this world. There are so many different types of people and different communities. It's really important that we recognize all the intersections of these identities so that we ourselves can become more comfortable around different people. Equity is different than equality. It recognizes the systematic barriers that exist between different marginalized communities. It's about assessing what each individual needs in order to become successful. And what about inclusion? Everyone deserves to be included. It's really as simple as that. The purposeful exclusion of someone specifically centered around their race, ethnicity, or culture, or anything else they cannot control is a sure way to induce trauma within that person. Here's the big picture. We cannot have one without the other. We need all three: diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that we can work to break down these systematic barriers that are holding our communities back. If you found this video helpful, be sure to share it.
Right now, our identity is confused with the far left-wing agenda of very radical extremists, which is one of the main reasons moderate and conservative groups ignore us and don't know our identity, our unique history. The majority of Caucasians think we are owned by the left. We need to exit this emotion salad of the far left and pursue our own destiny as independents, not owned by the left or the right. We don't ask enough questions about initiatives like DEI, BLM, AA, and CRT that get presented as benefiting us, yet benefit others more. We need strategies specifically for us as Aboriginal Black Americans without mixing in all other groups who get far more benefits from them. Why should we focus on pressuring companies to hire and include every other group when we are in the last place when it comes to median incomes and net worth? To me, that's the scorecard we should focus on: money. Let other groups fight their own battles. Let's focus only on teaching our true history without being whiny and emotional. Let's stop clouding our problem space with multiple other problem spaces.
At Stanford Law School, a judge who'd been invited to speak was stopped by angry students and Stanford's Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Absolute disenfranchisement of their rights and does land.
The diversity dean lectured this federal judge for 6 minutes.
Is it worth the pain that this causes and the division that this causes? Do you have something so incredible important to say about Twitter and guns and COVID that is worth this impact on the division of these people?
At least the law school president later apologized, saying this violates Stanford's commitment to free speech. Good.
We simply don't have the bandwidth to fight everyone else's battles. Here's why our economy and history should be the focus for November 2024 and beyond. How do we go from being kicked to the curb after the Civil War with no assets to building self-sustaining, resilient Black Wall Street cities between the 1890s and 1920s to then being in last place in median incomes and net worth ever since those great cities were destroyed? It was a planned, government-backed demolition of our exclusive, independent, segregated economy. Our entrepreneurial ancestors were a threat to the bipolar American dream, which was a nightmare for us. Black Wall Street practiced true capitalism over 100 years ago, which believes in merit-based entrepreneurship, resilience, product quality, and fair prices. Fake capitalism, which the colonizers practiced, gives the elite an unfair head start by making the oppressed group, you know what that is, the permanent underclass to control competition and suppress wages. Read that again. Remember, the love of money is the root of all evil. Follow the money trail. Black Wall Street threatened all of that. In university-level economics courses, they openly taught that the American economy needs to maintain 5% unemployment to control inflation with checks and balances on labor costs, which is our incomes. And guess which group has made up a majority of that 5%? Yep, you guessed it. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe as we continue this intense series of videos, The Road to November, to make the case for a more effective agenda in pursuit of tangible outcomes. Be on the lookout for an October surprise that may affect the big event in November, you know what event that is, in ways we never anticipated. Stay tuned and see you in the next video. Take care.